In the early morning of September 15, 2019, the Limay River, a peaceful river in No province, Argentina, suddenly became the scene of a horrifying discovery. On the water were floating parts of a human body. The body parts were not found together, making initial identification extremely difficult. The victim was soon identified: Laura López, an 18-year-old high school student who had been missing for less than 48 hours. Faced with such a haunting scene, the public began asking, who was the killer? Why did they act with such cruelty? Like and subscribe to follow the shocking developments of a case that once shook all of Argentina. Around 9 a.m. on September 15, 2019, in Neuquén province, Argentina, two fishermen spotted a strange object floating in the water near the Limay River dam while fishing. Curious, they approached, and were horrified to realize they had found parts of a human body. Stunned by the gruesome discovery, they immediately called the police. Less than 15 minutes later, authorities arrived at the scene. The area was quickly sealed off, and a forensic investigation was launched. The victim was identified as a young woman, with the body severely dismembered. Initial findings suggested the killer had advanced skills in using a knife. As they expanded the search area, police recovered several key pieces of evidence: a torn cloth bag, leggings, some personal clothing, 2 rings, and a sharp object with suspected brown fluid, found beneath the river. Several body parts were found scattered near the dam, heavily decomposed or partially consumed by animals, making identification more difficult. News of the body immediately raised suspicions it might be linked to the disappearance of Laura López, an 18-year-old girl from Platier who had been reported missing less than 3 days earlier. According to her family, Laura left home on the afternoon of September 12th and never returned. Her phone was unreachable. They reported her missing the next day. However, under local regulations, authorities had to wait 48 hours after the last contact to begin processing a missing person case. Although the identity wasn't yet confirmed, the match in gender, age, and timing made police suspect the body was Laura's. Police immediately invited Laura's family to the scene to assist with identification. Upon seeing the recovered items, Laura's sister, Damaris, tearfully confirmed they belonged to her sister. After identifying the victim as Laura Cielo López, police officially launched a full investigation focusing on her life and potential connections to the crime. Laura Cielo López was born on November 11, 2000, the youngest of 3 sisters. When she was just 3, her mother died in a car accident. After the tragedy, Laura's father fell into depression and turned to alcohol to cope with the pain. Despite growing up in hardship and instability, Laura always had a smile on her face. Her 2 sisters loved and cared for her like their own daughter. At 18, Laura attended evening school and sold fried pastries at the market during the day to support her family. She barely had a moment to rest, but she was always cheerful, caring for her nieces and nephews, tutoring them, playing, and being their best friend. On the evening of September 12, 2019, Laura helped her sister clean the house, then sat down to drink mate. She giggled and joked, "This is the first time I've made it well." Laura's sister had no idea that was the last time she would see her sister smile. The memories of Laura are vivid and warm, but now they exist only in tears and grief. According to her family, Laura was a gentle, reserved girl with few relationships and no known conflicts. Back at the scene, forensic experts collected DNA, fingerprints, and physical traces from the body and surrounding area to assist in the investigation. Every detail, no matter how small, was thoroughly examined with one goal: to uncover the person behind this brutal crime. Alongside forensic analysis, police also began examining the victim's personal devices, primarily her mobile phone. The analysis revealed a series of suspicious calls made in the early morning of September 13th, just hours after Laura was reported missing. Specifically, at 3:16 a.m., Laura's phone received a call from a man named Alfredo Emilio Escobar. Less than an hour later, Escobar called 3 more times, at 3:22, 3:36, and 3:40 a.m. Location data from cell towers showed that during those calls, both Laura and Escobar were at their respective homes. However, around 4:29 a.m., Laura's phone began moving toward the city center, stopping at Escobar's residence, where the last stable signal was recorded. At 5 a.m., Laura's WhatsApp account unexpectedly updated a short status with an alien face emoji, considered the final sign she was using her phone. Right after, police extracted footage from 13 surveillance cameras in the area, including traffic, residential, and shop cameras. 2 clips recorded in the early hours of September 13th showed 2 people, matching the appearances of Laura and Escobar, walking together, consistent with GPS data from Laura's phone. The key witness, Florencia, Laura's best friend, testified that in the months before the crime, Escobar had repeatedly texted Laura asking her to go out for beer, though they had never met in person. Florencia said she had known Escobar for about 5 years and was well aware of his bad reputation, often warning Laura to stay away. Laura insisted she would never meet Escobar and usually ignored his messages. Based on all the collected evidence, police officially identified Alfredo Emilio Escobar as the prime suspect in the case. On the night of September 16, 2019, at the Neuquén Provincial Justice Department, a special investigative team officially filed for a warrant to arrest and search Alfredo Emilio Escobar's home. Simultaneously, to clarify their relationship, investigators reviewed Escobar's personal records. Alfredo Emilio Escobar was born in 1991 in Platier, Neuquén Province, Argentina. He was the only child in a middle-class family. Both parents were civil servants. His childhood was relatively peaceful, and his academic performance was average. After finishing high school, he studied automotive mechanics at a local technical school. At that school, Escobar and Laura López attended the same institution, but they had virtually no interaction. Laura came from a poor background but was hardworking and determined. She studied hard, worked part-time, and helped support her family. In contrast, Escobar quickly spiraled into a reckless lifestyle, often partying, drinking, and staying out all night with friends. After dropping out of school, he worked as a mechanic and turned his house into a noisy, nighttime gathering spot. Neighbors often complained about loud music, shouting, and cars coming and going late into the night. In 2018, Escobar was arrested for driving under the influence at over 80 km per hour on National Route 22 and crashing into a patrol car. When restrained, he resisted the officers. Although charged, Escobar was eventually released. Since then, police created a separate file to monitor his behavior. According to friends and former girlfriends, Escobar was impulsive, easily lost control, and frequently used drugs. A girl who once dated Escobar said he physically assaulted her friend during an argument. These details gradually painted the picture of a disturbed individual with violent tendencies and potential danger to others. On the morning of September 17, 2019, before sunrise, Alfredo Emilio Escobar and his parents quietly left their home on Estrada Street. The 3 quickly got into their car and drove straight toward National Route 22, the road leading out of town, as if trying to flee from something. Unbeknownst to them, investigators were silently tailing their every move. When the car stopped on a deserted road near the bridge connecting Neuquén and Cipolletti, Escobar and his father had just stepped out when police appeared. "Please show your ID," an officer said. His tone was calm, but the tension in the air was palpable. Escobar did not resist, but his whole body stiffened. His face turned pale, and his eyes darted around, desperately searching for a way out. Within minutes, he was handcuffed and placed into a police vehicle. The family's car was also seized for investigation. That same day, authorities searched the Escobar family home on Estrada Street. In the suspect's bedroom, police discovered suspicious marks on the walls. When luminol was used, several glowing streaks appeared, indicating the likely presence of biological fluids. However, what truly sent chills down the investigators' spines was found in the backyard. In that area, among trampled bushes, police found multiple suspicious traces, likely biological in nature. The traces were located in specific places: the gate, the right handle of a wheelbarrow, and notably on the tip of a sharp-edged object. All suspected materials were sealed and sent to the Central Laboratory of the Ministry of Health for DNA analysis. Based on the position and nature of the traces, police concluded that Escobar's backyard was likely the crime scene. At the Central Laboratory of the Ministry of Health, Forensic doctor Carlos Gordillo determined that Laura Cielo López died from severe trauma to the occipital region, causing brain hemorrhage and immediate unconsciousness. Based on the severity of the injuries, experts believed Laura remained in a critical state for 2 to 4 hours before dying. With timely medical help, she could have survived. Bruises on her arms showed that the victim struggled and tried to resist before losing consciousness. Forensic examination also found injuries in sensitive areas, supporting the family's initial suspicion of a serious sexual assault. Through soft tissue damage analysis, experts determined that the murder weapon was a common kitchen sharp object, with no signs of being used by someone with advanced anatomical knowledge. At the same time, DNA analysis of samples collected at Escobar's house matched both victim Laura López and suspect Alfredo Escobar. Additionally, DNA matching the victim was found on the sneakers Escobar wore when arrested, as well as on a sharp object recovered near the body discovery site. After being arrested while traveling with his parents out of the city, Escobar was taken to the police station in Neuquén City. There, he was taken into an interrogation room. Initially, Escobar remained calm and repeatedly claimed he had nothing to do with Laura López's disappearance. However, investigators presented initial evidence, including call logs from Escobar's phone to Laura in the early morning of September 13. Next, they presented GPS location data from Laura's phone, showing she had arrived at Escobar's house around 4:30 a.m. Additionally, security camera footage showed Escobar and Laura appearing together in the neighborhood near his house at that time. Faced with increasingly clear evidence, Escobar began to show signs of confusion, but continued to deny any involvement in the murder. He stated that he had hosted a party at his house that night, inviting Laura and some former classmates. According to Escobar, a drug-addicted friend of unknown identity was also at the party. He claimed this person was the one who killed Laura. Escobar said he only heard a scream coming from the room. When he ran in, he saw a chaotic scene and Laura was already unconscious. Fearing being implicated, Escobar decided to help the friend hide the body. However, this testimony did not match the crime scene and there was no evidence of a third person's presence. Under growing pressure from investigators, Escobar eventually fell silent, then bowed his head and admitted he had acted against Laura's will. According to his statement, after forcing himself on her, Laura reacted violently and threatened to report him. Escobar panicked, lost control, and used violence, causing her to fall unconscious. However, instead of seeking help or calling for an ambulance, Escobar left the scene and told no one. After some time, he returned, dismembered the body, and attempted to dispose of it in the Limay River to erase all traces of the crime. Escobar's full confession was documented. The details matched evidence from the scene and forensic conclusions. Escobar was charged with multiple serious offenses, including aggravated sexual assault and intentional homicide. Notably, gender-based violence, femicide, was identified by the court as an aggravating factor in the indictment. On March 18, 2020, the trial of Alfredo Emilio Escobar officially began at the Neuquén Provincial Court, Argentina. Over 5 days of hearings, the court heard testimonies from more than 30 witnesses and analyzed all forensic evidence, digital data, and related expert reports. On March 23rd, after the final arguments between the prosecution and defense, the jury took only 40 minutes to reach a final verdict. Alfredo Emilio Escobar was sentenced to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole. When the verdict was announced, Escobar sat motionless, showing no emotion. Meanwhile, the victim's family broke down in tears, a mix of sorrow and relief after a long fight for justice for Laura. Outside the Neuquén Provincial Court, hundreds of people raised signs reading Justicia por Laura amidst applause and tears. The trial quickly became a symbol of the fight against gender-based violence in Argentina, a pressing issue that is gaining deep social attention. 6 months later, in September 2020, the government of Neuquén officially passed the Laura López Law, mandating gender equality and anti-violence training in the education system. The life sentence for Alfredo Emilio Escobar closed the case, but did not fully settle the public debate. Many believe that the sentence still does not match the brutality of the crime Escobar committed. Laura Cielo López's family expressed their grief, but felt somewhat comforted that justice was served. The case of Laura Cielo López not only left an irreplaceable void in her loved ones' hearts, but also rang alarm bells about gender-based violence, where every delay can cost an innocent woman's life. What do you think about this case? Leave your thoughts in the comments below so we can discuss together. That's the end of the video. If you found the story compelling, please like, subscribe, and share to support us. Thank you, and see you in the next video.